Jumping into Avini, my wife had a great deal of health issues, specifically with her sinuses. And she's always been a beautiful but sickly little girl. She was to the point to where if she came across certain smells, aromas, fragrances like perfumes, lotions, certain types of makeup, colognes, things of that nature would just set her on fire. To the point to where she would get a really bad headache and her sinuses would swell and her gums would swell as well. And it was just a really, really big nightmare. Started our Avini journey with all 4 products. The Immunity has amazing properties for cleaning out your gut, plus the mushroom abilities as well is huge. The Plus Relief was something that was absolutely brilliant all the way around, ability to actually address pain, swelling, and inflammation. Well, swelling and inflammation is something my wife always had. The Nano Silver, well, that's a no-brainer. Sinuses, you're always dealing with all sorts of pathogens that don't like us. They want to override us. And then, of course, the Cell Defender. I was telling my wife, hey, you know what? You got some major issues going on. I just want you to take it 6 times a day. Part of our church group is we do a trek assignment, which is, to try and reenact our pioneer heritage. Went and did that, and my wife sustained a really, really bad fall, to which the doctors, the orthopedic surgeon basically said that anything and everything that she could have bruised in her knee, she did bruise. Aside of breaking everything, she pushed it right to that point. She didn't break nothing, didn't tear anything. So we didn't have to go in for surgery, but she made everything absolutely angry in her right knee. Of course, we were, continued on to use the Plus Relief and everything else. Shortly thereafter, she couldn't bend her knee and she started to do physical therapy. Well, of course, with the issue of doing physical therapies, you're trying to manipulate or move something that didn't want to be moved. Early one morning, I got out of bed because I heard something in the living room. And I didn't know exactly what it was. I quickly realized it was my wife, but it didn't sound like my wife. I went into the hallway and she was standing there with a really deadpan look on her face. She mumbled something, to which I replied, "I'm sorry, what'd you say?" And she says, "I can't feel myself." And I quickly realized that when she was saying that, she had no facial control. So I immediately grabbed her, gave her a big bear hug, and walked her to the couch. And at that point in time, my emotions, my mind was screaming, what is going on? Because my wife is my world. As my wife is sitting there on the couch, I'm asking her, puff out your cheeks. Can you hold your lips together and puff out your cheeks? She couldn't do that. And I says, can you move your left arm? She says, I couldn't do that. And I said, what about fine-tuned skills? Can you move your fingers? And she could twitch her left thumb ever so slightly. I said, can you move your leg? And she couldn't even do that. And I said, what about your toes? And she said, well, I think I'm moving them. I looked at the floor. Of course, she wasn't even moving her foot at all. So she had total left side immobility and couldn't control anything. My mind is racing. Okay, well, she might be having a huge issue with a massive amount of blood in one area, specifically in her brain. So I loaded her up and I said, yep, I agree. Within a matter of 14 minutes, they had the medication flowing through her veins to help deal with this specific issue. Now, this was at 7 o'clock in the morning is when she had it. 8 o'clock in the morning, we were at the hospital. By 8:15, she was given the medication that she needed, and she was whisked off to get an MRI to check her neurological condition with her brain. And by noon that very day, they kept coming in every 15 minutes to ask her, can you do this? Can you do that? And they were checking on her and everything else because the medication that they gave her thinned her blood so much that she had a huge reality and a major risk that she could bleed out internally in a matter of minutes. They watched her like a hawk. Every 15 minutes, somebody came in. But the beauty of it, Robin, is by noon that same day, she had all of her dexterity back. She had all of her movement back. She had all of her facial movement back. And to this day, she has absolutely no residual long-term issues. I thank God for these Avini products, because if you think about what they do inside the body, like cleaning the toxins out of your blood, which allowed that medication to work quicker and faster. Also, with the Plus Relief, having the ability to deal with the swelling and the inflammation on her brain to knock it out before it had a chance to start. I thank my lucky stars every day that I had my wife on these products prior to her having this issue. It scares me to death to think of where my wife could be if we didn't have them. It was quite interesting. The medical professionals that were working on her, they kept going back and forth. We don't know if she actually did have this condition happen because she responded so quickly and came back so fast. So they kind of argued a little bit back and forth amongst all the medical professionals. Well, we treated her as if she had this condition and she responded accordingly, but yet she came back so fast. What's going on here? And in the back of my mind, I'm just laughing, thinking, I know something you don't know.
Thank you, Thayne.